So, you've decided to start a business in India. It's an amazing feeling, right? But it's also like stepping into this giant, complicated maze of finance, compliance, and taxes. We're going to follow one new entrepreneur as she navigates this maze, from her very first tax form all the way to a future run by AI auditors. Let's dive in.
All right, here's our roadmap. We'll start by setting the scene in the modern financial maze. Then, we'll walk through her first big step, getting a handle on GST. After that, we'll tackle the yearly tax puzzle, see how she finds help in today's digital world, and discover some good news about how the old rules are getting simpler. And finally, we'll get a peek into the future with something called the AI Auditor.
Okay, let's kick things off. A brand new business means a whole new set of challenges. And let's be honest, the money-related ones are usually the biggest. So meet our entrepreneur. She's brilliant at her craft, she has a fantastic idea, and she's ready to go. But like so many founders, the whole financial side of running a company, that's a completely different universe. While she's trying to build her business, the world of compliance is already knocking at her door. And this is the question, isn't it? The one every founder asks. It can feel so overwhelming. You're hearing about GST, TDS, ITR. It's just this alphabet soup of regulations. So where on earth does she and where do we even begin? Well, the first big hurdle for pretty much any new business in India is something called the Goods and Services Tax, or GST. Now, the big idea behind GST was fantastic. It was meant to simplify everything, to create this single, unified tax system for the whole country. A really noble goal. But for a new business owner, it's still an entire system that she has to learn from square one. Her first real, practical task is getting that official GST registration certificate. And hey, here's some good news. It's a pretty straightforward digital process. You just log into the GST portal, click through a couple of menus, and download the form. It feels like a small win, but believe me, it's an important one. But here's one of those little details from the official welcome kit that's so easy to miss. It's not enough to just have the certificate sitting on your computer. You have to actually print it out and display it at your place of business. A small but super important compliance step. So she's figured out the basics of GST, but just as she's getting the hang of it, the financial year comes to an end. And that brings the next big boss battle, the income tax return, or ITR. You know, filing an ITR isn't just about paying taxes. It's so much more. It's your legal proof of income, which you absolutely need for things like loans or visas. It's how you get money back if you've paid too much tax. And this one's huge for a new business. It's the only way you can carry forward those early losses to reduce your taxes on future profits. And right here is where it gets really tricky. Our entrepreneur has to make a choice between two completely different systems. The old regime has higher tax rates, but you can claim all sorts of deductions. The new regime offers lower rates, but you lose almost all those deductions. And to make it even more interesting, the new one is now the default. This one choice could totally change her final tax bill. Okay, so faced with all this complexity, she does what any smart person would do. She decides it's time to find a professional to help her out. But the days of just asking a friend for their accountant's number, they're kind of fading. Today, people like her live online, which means the tax firms themselves have had to get really good at digital to even connect with them. So how are they doing it? Well, they've got this whole digital toolkit. They use SEO to pop up when she searches tax consultant. They create helpful blog posts that answer her exact questions. They build a professional presence on places like LinkedIn. Basically, they meet her right where she's already looking for answers. And these modern advisors aren't just great at marketing. They are experts with the digital tools needed to deal with the government systems, like the GST network, that most business owners find totally confusing. They become the perfect bridge between the entrepreneur and all that bureaucracy. So she finds the right advisor, and she learns some incredible news. The very system that felt so impossible to understand is actually in the middle of a huge simplification process. To really understand why this was so necessary, just get a load of this number. Over 4,000 amendments were made to the old Income Tax Act. It had become this giant patchwork quilt of rules on top of rules, making it almost impossible for anyone to navigate correctly. So, the government's solution is a brand new law, the Income Tax Act of 2025. And its entire purpose is to cut through all that complexity, to create a system that's easier to understand, more transparent, and hopefully leads to fewer arguments. Here's a perfect little example of that simplification in action. The old system had these two really confusing terms, previous year and assessment year. The new act, It just scraps them both and brings in one simple term, tax year. It's a small change, but it signals a huge shift towards making things clearer for everyone.
So our entrepreneur is feeling way more confident. The rules are starting to make sense. But then her advisor explains that at the exact same time the rules are getting simpler, the technology for enforcing those rules is getting, well, a lot smarter. She's about to get a peek into the future of finance, a future that involves AI.
Think about it. Traditionally, auditing used these simple, rule-based systems, and the problem was they'd flag thousands of totally normal transactions as suspicious, creating a mountain of false positives for humans to waste time on. The future is AI, systems that can actually understand context, spot things that are truly irregular, and even explain what they found in plain English.
And we've got the data to back this up. Just look at this comparison. The traditional method generated a whopping 942 false alarms. A more advanced machine learning model got that down to 169, but the AI model, it reduced the number of false alarms to just 12. That is an absolute game changer. I mean, look at this. This isn't just a tiny improvement. It's a massive leap in efficiency. By getting rid of almost all the noise, AI lets the human experts focus their valuable time on that tiny handful of transactions that might genuinely be a problem.
So, from her very first GST certificate to the dawn of AI auditors, our entrepreneur's journey really shows us a financial world that's changing incredibly fast. It's getting simpler in some ways, but way more technologically advanced in others. And that leaves us with a final, really important question to chew on. As these AI systems become the new guardians of our financial system, how do we make sure they're used responsibly? And what does this all mean for our ideas about privacy and trust?